Economics is about the use of scarce resources in the production and distribution of goods and services in society. Politics is also said to be about the authoritative allocation of values in society. Therefrom springs the field of political economics, because the definitions are so similar and the subjects very much alike and aligned. A constant question that vexes the political economic space is about how much government is needed to build an economy in current times. Some economists believe very little government is needed, while some insist that, especially for growing economies, a lot of government is needed. What even, in the first place, is a 21st century economy? And can Nigeria be assumed to be playing at that level? What happens to the basic building blocks that developed nations now take for granted as they define new standards? Should Nigeria also assume that those building blocks are here already, and should we then hand over the trajectory of the economy to private sector players only? Why has government in Nigeria been largely toxic to development, and why are the proponents of small government ignoring the pervasiveness of good governance and good government services to their own very existence? In today's show, we will also find time to discuss the necessary qualities of Nigeria's ideal president come 2023. What kind of person will make the difference? What are those differences that we need that will be central to the very survival of our country? We already have a litter of very distinguished Nigerians vying for that position. How do they measure up to the standards and quality we are looking for? Joining us today all the way from Washington, D.C., United States of America, is Honorable Okembono, international consultant, lawyer, and author. He had been a commissioner housing and community development at Prince George's, Maryland, USA, a presidential candidate in Nigeria's 2019 election, and presently an aspirant for the upcoming 2023 elections. You are welcome, Honorable Mbono.
Thank you so much, Honorable Faswa. It's my pleasure to be here.
So let's shoot. I see that you had been, a commissioner for housing and community development. Where do you stand exactly in this divide between a limited or a pervasive role for government in building Nigeria's economy in this 21st century?
Well, it's fairly straightforward. Nigeria cannot afford the luxury of stepping back and not being fully in tune with the 21st century economy, and to actually be able to fit into the world order of the 21st century. The government has to step back from actual participation in the business environment. What that means is that there's a lot of regulations and regulatory framework that the government can put together, but once they put it together, they have to step back, because the private sector is key to growing an economy. In most advanced economies, the small and medium-sized enterprises comprise of perhaps 80% of the business activity. And if Nigeria were to put in place regulatory framework that would enable and facilitate that, all the government needs to do is step back and collect taxes. And what are those regulatory framework? Let's say, for example, the base of 21st century is communications, speedy communications at the speed of light, whereby most business activities can be facilitated by an enhanced infrastructure that is tied to the internet. And that includes e-commerce, and that includes to engage with one's peers or one's business associates from remote locations. But before we get to that point, really, the Corporate Affairs Commission in Nigeria at this time is operating at the 20th century regulatory environment of registering companies. And why do I say that? In all of the 50 states of the United States, the average time to register a company and become a fully live registered company is about 30 minutes. And all of this is accomplished online through the internet. Now, in a situation where someone has a great business idea that they're trying to roll off the ground, they have a bunch of partners on standby, and they go to the Corporate Affairs Commission in Nigeria, and then they have to be waiting for the next 30 days to become a live company. There's a lot of things that could go wrong.
Right. I
within
think,
that time.
yes. Okay,
So
thank you.
that's
We'll come back to that, but, what jumps to my mind is, are we saying Nigeria is a 21st century economy already? And can we play at the same level as, say, the United States? That's one. And also, it's one thing to open a company, and we have tried to focus on that here, even in Nigeria. And I think they've cut it down to about 1 day or thereabout. But to open a company on the portal of CAC, for example, is one thing. But to get the business going and to have an economy where you can scale business is a different thing. What do you think about this?
Well, first you have to get the company off the ground. And let's say you get it off the ground in 1 day. Now, businesses are usually ideas and innovation. Now, once you've got that corporate framework off the ground, now there are a couple of different choices you have. Either perhaps maybe you get some kind of angel investor, or you go to the traditional banks. I know that the traditional banks in Nigeria have not really gotten accustomed to lending that is not collateral based. And so that is where government actually can come in with an agency, which you could call it any name, but in the US, such an agency is called US Business Administration. And what that does is that they guarantee a portion of a takeoff loan. Sometimes it could be a grant, but let's just call it a loan for purposes of really, making it purely business venture. If it is a loan and the government steps in to guarantee a portion of that loan, then it makes it a lot easier for the banks to go ahead and front a loan. Now, the whole idea that Nigeria has to actually sit back and wait to become a 21st century economy is almost like a patient waiting to die without taking the necessary steps to bolster their potential to survive. There's no time. There's no time to wait for infrastructure which perhaps can enable everyone be online and get certain things done online. Those things need to be rolled out like yesterday, especially the communications infrastructure. Even if nothing else is working, but the communications infrastructure is so critical today.
Now, okay, but let me take you back.
There's no excuse for that because...
Okay, now, sorry, let me butt in there, okay? Because, I mean, I live here and permanently, and, I think the problem becomes the kind of challenges we are facing, the fact that almost every home has to dig their own borehole, and I hear that has effect on seismic issues, the earth crust, and so on. Everybody provides their own energy as it is right now. Even the one from the government keeps breaking down. There's been no provision of standard housing for the poorest Nigerian. Everybody does what they like. They build anyhow in those areas that are, less developed within the country. Security as well. For those who think their lives are worth protecting, they have to go and hire a policeman or 2 or 3 or 4 to go around with them. And so I think these are the kind of government services that people believe who are on the other spectrum as you. People believe that the government must wake up and do its duty rather than say the private sector should handle this. What do you think, especially because you were a commissioner of housing and community development, which is more or less like a grassroots kind of portfolio that thinks about the people and also cares about the poorest in society?
Yeah, well, there are so many integral areas of governance that may be insufficient in Nigeria, but the government has to learn to work and chew gum at the same time, which means that a lot of things has to happen just about simultaneously. Now, when it comes to security, security is the number one thing that a government owes its people. A government owes its people to be able to respond by a phone call when there's a security challenge. Now, I cannot say between the last 4 years, actually, that the situation is much more out of hand than we understood it like 4 years ago. Okay. Now, what I see there is really clearly a lack of political will to do certain things on the security level, because there are technology that is clearly available today that can begin to contain some of the flashpoints of the security situation. There are satellites that can see within a micro area of any environment in Nigeria. There are even technology that can sense movements in areas of Nigeria where there are security issues. So if the government is not deploying any of that, then we don't know what to say, except that to say that, there's a certain failure that perhaps someone has refused to stubbornly deploy, or someone is not holding someone accountable to a point where if someone has a responsibility of overlooking a certain area of the security architecture, and instead of doing that, they move whatever budget that is in that agency into something else. Maybe they want to acquire a bunch of mansions in Dubai or something, and that's more important to them than securing the lives of the people. Then it behooves whoever is the commander-in-chief to basically, take that portfolio away from that person and hold him accountable and hand it to someone else. Because at the end of the day, the buck stops somewhere. Now, if the security situation as it is right now is contained even within perhaps 50% of its obvious expected status, then we find that the rest of the economy, if there's no infrastructure such as telecommunications type infrastructure that can move at the speed of light, then everything remains static. So at the end of the day, you find that all of these things have to be done at about the same time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that means bringing the best hands for each of the categories on. Nigerians are very patient people.
Yeah.
And these patients apparently has got to a limit.
Hope the patience is not being overstretched. Yeah. So just stay tuned. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back and pick it up where we stopped. Thank you.
Daily, we bring you updates around politics.
People like you who are very young, you have no future. Anybody now who is 30 years, if what is happening today continues, by the time you are 60, you will have no country.
The DPO of a particular unit does not have to wait until the commissioner tells him what to do within his jurisdiction.
We have political parties on the ground. Some of them have been there for years. But they themselves, in their own sober moments, they know that this country is not the one they're expecting to run.
Policy and governance.
Are you saying the NBS is lying?
I'm saying to you very clearly that the NBS has a serious problem with accurate data till today.
The 5th Assembly, as well as the 7th Assembly, their own attempts were unproductive.
Emergence of the Taliban has simply emboldened terror groups globally.
There is a lot of attention with regards to security developments in Nigeria.
On Daily Politics, we interrogate issues, holding the actors to account, bearing in mind all the sides.
We heard that in some places now, people have to go and pay tax, not to the local government, not to the state, but to criminals.
Nobody can come to your house and kidnap you without information.
If this country is bleeding, it is bleeding because we have failed to educate our young.
Welcome back to your favorite show, The Nationalist. And today we've been speaking with Honorable Okembonu, all the way from Washington, D.C., United States. And the topic for today, we've been talking about the role of government in society, in a nation such as ours, in the 21st century economy. And also we're looking at some of the aspirations that's been going on and whether we're getting the kind of quality that we want. So, Honorable Oke, are you still with us? So, you were speaking at length about the use of technology. Yes, you were speaking about the use of technology for to, curb our security issues. And I was thinking, okay, fine. Of course, technology is the ultimate solution, but how do you think we can integrate people who are looking for jobs? We have a 33% unemployment rate now. If we bring technology only, what's going to occupy our people? How can we integrate the people into the security solutions and also add the technology? What do you think?
Well, I will actually like to clarify that the unemployment rate in Nigeria is way beyond 33%. I haven't seen the latest numbers from the Bureau of Statistics, but in looking at anecdotal evidence in Nigeria, unemployment might be as high as 50, 60%. Now, having said that, there's a certain kind of productivity that would, if it becomes the norm in Nigeria, will render a lot of people busy doing certain things whereby the insecurity will actually begin to abate on its own. And why do I say this? Now, let's say the average 18 to 22-year-old in Nigeria essentially is roaming the streets without a lot of skills. The reason for that is because there was a failure in between when those young people were between 16 and maybe 22, 25, because part of my experience and expertise from when I started in government here is that there are programs that are built into post-secondary education that enables almost everyone to come up with some form of skill or the other. Now, not everyone has to go to university and get a bachelor's or a master's. When people are finishing high school here, in the area that I serve in government, many of them are channeled towards skills acquisition through trades, through apprenticeship, through corporate trainings. Now, let's say maybe skills such as plumbing or electrical services or even automotive repair is available and built into between the final year of secondary school and within the 1 or 2 years of tertiary education, no matter what that tertiary education is. People now become able to acquire a skill in plumbing and become self-employed, because ultimately a plumber who knows what they're doing, or an electrician or an auto mechanic, can earn as much money as a professional in any environment. In here, for example, plumbers can live side by side with doctors and lawyers because they own their own businesses. And if you made a call for a plumber to come to your business or to your house, the hourly rate that plumber will charge you, is pretty much put him in line with anyone else who is going to have to live a middle-class life. And guess what? Most of these trades allow people to become self-employed. The largest employer of labor in the United States is actually a lot of people that are self-employed. All they have to do is, once they get that skill and get that little license that they are certified in a certain area, it used to be they will put up an ad, a small listing in the phone book, which is called Yellow Pages. And then anybody needs anything, they look in their neighborhood and see maybe 3 or 4 or 7 or 10 providers of that thing and call one of them. Now today it's even easier, because all they have to do is get listed in Google. When they get listed in Google, anybody requires any kind of service, they get in and then call from those, and those people basically, they show up, do the work, you pay them, That's the kind of economy Nigeria needs at this point in time. Now, it doesn't even just have to be traits and skills, but also because Nigerians are very creative people, we find that the other skills they have in terms of maybe developing apps and the intersection between art and science and how good they are in entertainment actually opens up a whole new set of opportunities.
Okay.
They're going to end up, once they manage to create something and put that thing on YouTube and manage to push it out into the world, the sky could be the limit. But with all of those opportunities, the government themselves really, to tap into those opportunities, will need to create a system where they know what each person is doing in some way. And how do you know that? You encourage people to incorporate their businesses. Because once they incorporate their businesses and they have a tracking number for the business, then the government knows where to get the taxes, the tax revenues from.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, when you come into some government office, the government figures out that you're a company, a small company or any sort of company, then the government knows they're going to get revenues from you at the end of the day as taxes. But today, I can tell you that the hundreds of thousands of Nigerians may be making great revenues that the government doesn't know anything about.
It's true. Now,
because the government has not created.
Thank you, Honorable. Okay, now I'm going to, thanks for that. It's expressive enough. I'm going to ask you one omnibus question, and actually it's going to be the last question. Let's talk a little bit about the political economy and the politics itself. A few people have stepped out, distinguished people, for the 2023 presidential election. I want to ask you, what qualities do you think they should have, number one? Do you think the guys that have stepped out have those qualities? And are you still running, and on what party is going to give you the platform? Can you do that for me in 3 minutes?
Okay. Well, I certainly think that many people that are running for office are doing it because of their sense of entitlement. They feel they are big in the society, and so they're entitled to run president. And that is sad, because if any of these people end up in power as the president of a future Nigeria, you're going to find a Nigeria that is not going to move an inch forward. And it doesn't really matter whether they're from the north or from the south, or whether they have been governors or other high public officials. I've seen some governors in certain parts of the country who they are claimed to know what they're doing and austere, but in reality, these are people who, when they had a chance to bring investments into the states that they governed, they went and partnered those investments with their private companies, creating massive conflict of interest. And it's like Nigerians, because people are not raising some of these issues, these people have an audacity to come out and act like they are clean candidates. No, they're not. And then also we find people, that some of these people, actually, when they ran their states, they were the only people that got richer. Nobody else in the economic states. So how can that be so? That means that they were more suited to the business environment where whatever it is that they are doing is their business. And so being in the public service is not really typically for those people. Now, as far as myself, there has been some perhaps dialogues and negotiations that have gone on with some political parties, and my campaign team had to make some adjustments in our plans for 2022. And we perhaps have a short window of time to finally project the campaign forward if we're going to do it. And I would say that window of time is the next 2 to 4 weeks. Right. And by then, I will be publicly announcing the move that I will be making.
Okay, nice. That's been great. I think we're going to have to also talk extensively more about developments in the political scene with you at another point in time. I want to thank you, Honorable Kimbonu, for joining us on the Nationalist, and we're still going to be seeing more of you by God's grace. Thanks for coming, and have a good one out there in Washington, D.C. You're still tuned to The Nationalist, and today we've been discussing with Honorable Okembonu from Washington, D.C., United States, who's a politician, lawyer, and author who had worked in the U.S. For quite a while. Please continue to stay tuned to your best show on TV, The Nationalist. We're going to be seeing you with more interesting topics next week. God bless.